Sunday afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up. It is me, Candy from the South Florida Tribune, along with my other co-host, Smokin' Jeremy B. How are you today, Jeremy?
Any day I wake up is good.
That's
Always better to
awesome.
be seen than viewed.
This is true. Very true. Very true. Wow. So, next weekend is the last weekend of football for the NFL. This weekend, it's NFL football, but not really. Not really. It's Pro Bowl, but what are they doing?
It's regulated flag football. There's
Oh,
these skills challenges that they're doing, and a lot of them are football related. The one that made absolutely no sense to me, even though the NFC won it, and that was 3 bonus points for them in the whole Pro Bowl ranking scoring thing. Why do they have a closest to the pin challenge in golf?
so we have Dale, happy Sunday, y'all. Wayne, happy should be Super Bowl Sunday. Well, that's next weekend. So,
No, it should be in Super Bowl Sunday. I
ah,
get what he's saying.
and then
And
Ken.
Smoking
Hey.
Dad.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. So on this Sunday afternoon, Pro Bowl, flag football, which is the new rave. I mean, not rave, but it is the new thing, the new sport that's going to be in the Olympics. New old, but they are going to have it in the Olympics. I get it for not NFL players, but for maybe some of us that aren't good at tackling or shouldn't be tackling, playing flag football to play a form of football. What? For the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, I miss the last time we had good tackles. Do you remember that one in the Pro Bowl?
Mm-mm.
Mark Taylor, when he lit that guy up coming across the middle, catching a pass and forced a fumble. It was
Yes.
such a beautiful, technically sound, great hitting tackle. He didn't go above the chest. He didn't go below the waist. He tackled the guy right in the basket while his helmet clipped the football. The football popped up, went to his, and they ended up winning the game while he was playing for the Redskins. And yes,
Wow.
I still call them the Redskins.
I think most of us do. It's hard to get used to that name, the Commanders, but
Native Americans still call it the Redskins. They were proud of the chief that was on the side of the helmet because he was the last great chief of the Potomac Indian tribe, which, if they really wanted to honor that chief, they'd have named the Washington team the Potomac.
that's true. That's true. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. But flag football and for the NFL? Really?
Why not? They're almost regulating it to that now with the way they're getting on people about hard hits and everything else. I understand the head hunting. 100%. I agree that's a rule they should keep. I understand about trying to take somebody out below their knees. That's similar to a chop block. That's a perfectly fine one. But tackling above the knees from the thighs to your chest, that's real tackling.
I agree.
Go broke.
I agree. Tackling is, I mean, NFL, you're supposed to be tackling. Like, that's part of the game. That's part of the physicality that, I mean, not all of us can do. And that's why those players get elevated to that level of playing football. But I, I don't know. I mean, so many of the other sports, like they play their all-star game or however you want to call it in the middle of their season. So the NFL is the only one that puts it really at the end of the season. And so therefore are you really getting all your pros because let's face it, everybody in the Super Bowl, none of them are playing because they don't
Every
want to get injured because they're playing next week. So you're missing all of those. And I'm not saying that they're going to have all of the all-stars, but they're going to have some of the top talent. That's why they're where they're at.
I mean, Amon Ra got to go because he was the alternate for Debo Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, should Amon Ra have even been an alternate? 5 wide receiver in the league statistically. He shouldn't have had to have been an alternate, but because they add in the special teams positions, some of them's overshadow him. That's why it's the top 3 wide receivers, and then you see a couple of the punt and kick return specialists added to that roster in the wide receiver room, but yet they still have a spot for the kick and punt returner. Hmm, doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either, but um, it's a
It's a
it's a brutal
brutal
game, and
game in a kinder, gentler, safe room world. Um, I say still, I think the way to fix it, and it's the only way to fix it, because then it makes it match up with every other professional sport. Do away with the bye weeks. You extend the week 1 season. You give every team a bye week the week before and week 8, and that's also the trade deadline, so people got time to actually focus on the trade deadline. Week 9 is the Pro Bowl. Week 10 is a bye week for every team in the league. You do away with all that other BS. You can schedule make it so that if a team plays on a Thursday night game, they don't play till Sunday. And the same with the week before. If you're on a Thursday night game, you can't be in the Monday night game. Don't put a team in a Thursday game, whether it's Thanksgiving or not, on Monday or night football or Sunday night football. Make them afternoon games.
mm-hmm, I get it. I get it. And
Sorry, nephew's visiting the grandparents.
aw, um, yeah, middle of the season I could see, but do you think a lot of players would go for that? Or do you think because their contracts that they're afraid of getting injured, then they wouldn't play?
Well, if you think about it, because they're afraid of being injured for the Super Bowl, it makes more sense to move it to the middle of the season because we already stopped the heavy hitting in the league. Make it a regular game. Make it a good game between the AFC and NFC. Or even better yet, make it the top 53 man roster versus the previous Super Bowl champion. I just you're cutting down on the amount of players that get to go, but then it's more of an honor to be there because you're a top 53. Take it out of the fans. Don't let them vote their favorite players. Let it be the statistically top players so far through the season.
How would you make it a more meaningful game if it was the best of the NFC and against the best of the AFC? What stakes would you put? Because like let's face it,
Home field advantage
baseball
in
is
the Super
played with
Bowl.
that.
Like it.
Hmm?
Just like they do in all the other leagues. Home field advantage in the championship game.
Okay. Okay. I
If
can
you're
see
gonna do
that.
AFC versus NFC, make it mean that whoever wins, whether it's AFC or NFC, you get home field advantage in the Super Bowl automatically, regardless of seed.
The only thing with that is they wouldn't put Super Bowls in some of our stadiums. Let's face I mean, well, I suppose, because like the Super Bowl is not going to come to Lambeau Field. There's not enough hotels around it. There's not enough, accommodations. It's just
See,
one of
now,
those towns that
Green Bay is the exception of the rule when it comes to everything because they're a small town with a big city feel because of their team.
right.
The only draw is when teams go to play there. The Super Bowl would not work there. The draft being there is amazing because that's springtime. You're talking
Right.
April or May, temperatures are warmer. They may have to do it indoors somewhere, which that would kind of negate it, but
Mhm. Yes.
Royce is having fun. That's all I got to say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Dale is asking us, so when are the Atlanta Braves changing their name?
Should be soon. Just like the Kansas City Chiefs will probably end up having to change their name. Anything related to Indians will end up having to change their name. Probably even college schools, because you got teams like the New Mexico Aztecs. I think it's ridiculous that we're erasing part of the American history. Because American natives, the Native Americans, they are the only true Americans here. The rest of us are a hodgepodge mix of whatever mutt mutts the countries where our grandparents, great grandparents, and everything else was from that put together. We're Americans, but we're not Native Americans.
Well, and I've never understood it either because I really don't think a sports team you you're honoring them. Like you cheer for them. It's not like you're cheering against and you're demeaning them, like you're putting them in a higher light. I mean, I grew up, my high school was at the time Menominee Falls Indians. I was an Indian. So yes, I had a mascot that was an Indian. Like, and to see all of that change because we might be offending, when I don't think that looking up to or talking about a team mascot is in any way demeaning.
Just like the Running Rebels are going to have to change their name because the history's so bad with the Rebels.
Yeah.
Um, uh, number one or number 9 recruit, 5-star recruit in college commits to Ohio State for football today.
Ah,
Belichick thanks to the Patriots fans for that he loved coaching there, and I think that was good that he did that. But that's a
he
sign that he's retiring.
he took a page out. Yeah, I saw that he took a page out in what the Boston Globe or something and put a big ad just thanking everybody. I think part of it was is he he did a couple of interviews for some of the vacancies. And let's face it, he's not going to go down to college. He's not going to go mess with any of that NIL. And no, nobody offered him what he wanted in the NFL. It's not
Yeah,
saying that they didn't offer him something, but I think he wanted more than most teams wanted to give up.
he wanted what Harbaugh got in San Diego or LA. Total control of the team, player personnel wise. And we've seen that his job as player personnel director and GM of the New England Patriots after Tom Brady left, it was no longer working as the Patriot way. And that's no knock to Bill and the job he did coaching that team. That is a knock that maybe coaches shouldn't try to be the ones that scouts players because there's way too much scouting that has to be involved all season long, not just right at draft time.
Exactly. And if you're coaching a team, how can you do both jobs? Like I get you want control because you want to control who's coming in and who's not. But you don't have eyes on all of the game. You don't have enough hours in the day to do that. To look and observe and see every game and watch every game and watch them practice and scouting and all that and then to coach your team. Like that's just I get it, but I don't.
It's like
Because
when Brad Holmes was the national scout for the LA Rams, he went back to school and demoted himself to Southeastern Conference because he wanted to graduate with his master's degree in leadership and management from University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Fridays was his only day off because at that time there was no Friday college games in the SEC. So what would he do? He'd walk across the street, leave his wife at home, go take his research with him, and sit at the high school across the street from his apartment. What quarterback was from that school? And it was a middle school.
I don't know.
Hendon Hooker. That is how Brad became friends with Hendon's dad because he saw something in Hendon Hooker on the field while he's sitting there trying to do this stuff. He found himself watching the football game because he's a scout and it's football.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw something in that kid in the 8th grade. So he's been tracking this kid's career and scouting from afar because you can't, you know, really go to every game, but paying
Mm-mm.
attention to his stats and watching his progression from middle school to high school to Virginia Tech, who had no O line and absolutely no weapons outside of Bryce Ford Wheaton, and then watched him go to Tennessee and flourish in a different system with almost no time to learn the system because I think 8 weeks in, their senior got hurt and he had to take over his junior year.
That's
So,
crazy.
so he takes over and he goes 18 touchdowns and 1 interception with only 8 weeks to learn a program. Then he comes in the next year and goes 37 touchdowns, two interceptions, and 10 rushing touchdowns, and was head and shoulders above everybody for the Heisman voting, including the guy that went 1 and the one that went 2 overall in the draft. And everybody says, "Oh, but he was just a running quarterback." No, he was a quarterback first, and he ran second. I actually went back and watched every single game. He would make his first, second, and third reads, which is more than most college kids do. And then if the pocket collapsed or nobody was open, he'd take off and run and do it successfully. It was a non-contact injury that blew his ACL. It wasn't like he got lit up. He turned when he got outside the lines on a dead run, and he got the team a first down to win a game when he blew out his ACL. It's nuts.
Wow. That's just crazy.
So I just wanted to throw that out there that, and Brad Holmes had a plan for Hendon Hooker the whole time.
Hmm.
And I think we were trading up if he would have been healthy and in the draft.
But being a GM and a head coach all in one,
It doesn't fit.
I just don't see it being that successful doing both jobs. Those are both full-time jobs that people get paid for. Like, I get you as a coach, you kind of want that, but as an organization, I'd want two different people doing that because it also is it's a different skill set too.
Right. And let's go back to when I think it was when Belichick was being talked about with Tom Brady, like Andy Reid is with Pat Mahomes right now. I think it was that same time frame when they did that interview with him right after the season. He goes, "Being a head coach is a 50 a week year job. You actually only get about 2 weeks off. You get that 2 weeks off to recover." And that was when the Pro Bowl was after the Super Bowl. Key thing, key thing there. So he
Hmm.
would take those 2 weeks off if he wasn't coaching the Super Bowl. And 9 times out of 10, he turned down coaching the Super Bowl because he wanted that 2 weeks off. And then it was right back to working with the scouts, working with the coordinators that he had, or if coordinators move on, hiring the next one and everything else. So I understand it. 7 days a week, 50 weeks out of the year, he was at his desk.
Oh, Joshua, and now that Scott is a big time author, he doesn't come on your show anymore. Well, actually, Scott has his own shows. This one is my show. So Scott comes on it when I've asked him to, but this is actually mine and Jeremy's show on Sundays, our Fire Up edition on Sundays for sure. So that's why Scott's not on. And he's a little under the weather today. So, but nope, Thursdays. He thought I was only on Thursdays.
And also,
Didn't.
seeing how Cliff Kingsbury, because after all the hate he got for taking the OC job as the Raiders by fans, stepped down, and now they're expected to name Luke Getsy the offensive coordinator of the of the Raiders. And I don't know if that's an improvement from Cliff Kingsbury.
Smoking Jay.
You know it.
And that's part of the head coach's job too, is like to be in on like all his staff. So there's been a lot of movement this year with a lot of different coordinators going here or there or getting fired. So there's a lot of having to gel, and as coaches, you have to learn to gel first before you can gel with your players. Although there are some teams that have not lost anybody, like Detroit, you guys are all back, or most of you guys.
The only one we might lose because he just had his second interview on Friday is Tanner Engstrom, our assistant offensive coordinator, which, you know, everybody says, "Oh, that's the guy next in line if Ben Johnson leaves." I'm going to throw a caveat out there. He hadn't had his first interview yet, and we hired a D-line coach to replace Scott Johnson, who did not do as good a job as Todd Walsh with this defense. And we hired Terrell Williams of the Titans, who's coaching at the for the American squad down at the Senior Bowl this week that plays this afternoon. And they made him the run game coordinator. I find that odd because if everybody that's around us is supposed to be so great as assistants around Ben Johnson, why is a defensive line coach being made the run game coordinator? That means if Ben Johnson did leave, Scotty Montgomery, our running backs coach, was not going to be the offensive coordinator. If Tanner Engstrom got promoted, they were going to have to hire somebody just to run game coordinate. I just calling it like I see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do know that Green Bay obviously moved on from Joe Barry, and the dominoes beneath him are starting to drop too, because some of the coaches are like, I don't I don't feel comfortable working with the new defensive or coordinator, or maybe he doesn't want to, or they're just not gelling. But our run defense um, coordinator, he's out. He decided he didn't want to, and I'm like, I hate to say this, but we were 23rd against the run and 28th and something else. And I'm like, okay, we're not really losing someone that's hitting on all cylinders.
23rd versus the run and 28th in scoring defense. That's what it
Yeah.
was. So if teams are able to run against you, what can they do? They can score against you. I think it was your red zone defense. Actually, it was 28th, and you guys were like 25th or 26th in scoring defense. It was something like that. But if you can't stop the run, you're not going to stop somebody in the red zone.
No. No.
Which,
Exactly.
say what you want, everybody says, "Oh, everybody's going to pound the rock and run for hundreds of yards against you. This quarterback's going to do it. This running back's going to do it. This running back's going to do it." The Lions had yet through 20 games never gave up a 100-yard rushing running back, which is why they were the number 2 run defense in the league. That's the part we got right. What we have to fix is the scoring defense and the scoring offense in the third quarter. Scoring offense, we were 20th. Scoring defense, we were 32nd in the league. That means every team, including the god-awful Panthers, did better at stopping teams in the third quarter. And don't shoot the messenger, but that's why the Lions lost that NFC Championship game. We couldn't stop a cold.
Mm-hmm. That's true, because that you allowed San Francisco to get back into that game, and say what everybody wants to say about Dan Campbell, and he's the gambler and stuff like that, but it worked most of the season. And is it going to work 90% of the time? No, but neither is a kick, and a field goal is never 100% guaranteed, and especially anymore. You used to
Especially
find kickers. You used to have more kickers that were more accurate. There were seasons where they would, but they're just not out there anymore.
Oh, there's 2 coming out of college that people should be looking at. If you want an accurate long distance field goal, there's 2 names I'm going to throw out. The kid out of Stanford, Josh Carte. He's over 60% over 50 with the long of 61 and 92% at everything under 50.
Wow.
And Harold Mevis out of Missouri, who had such a bad offense, his kicking won them games. He kicked 6 field goals for an NCAA record in one game with a 61-yard game winner. That's clutch, people. So, and he's also over 60% from over 50 and 85% for everything under. Either one. If you need a kicker, I'm telling you, that's the guy you want your team to take in day 3 of the draft, not day 2.
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, you have to think about it, because I remember they had an interview and they interviewed Matt LaFleur, and he said he just prayed every time our kicker went out. And it's like, okay, that says something.
Almost as bad as Dan Campbell when his friends and colleagues outside of Detroit would say, "Are you going to continue to be like this on 4th down?" He goes, "All I got to say is when you watch our team wear a diaper."
Mm.
6 of our games were won off of that. Only 3 games were lost out of on 4th down decisions. I'll take that average all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
you say not everybody's 90%. On 4th and 3 or less, the Lions, even after the NFC Championship game, were 86% successful. If they'd have got both of them, they'd have been at 90%. And technically, the pass was in one wide receiver's hands both times.
It was. Yes.
So
Yes.
it wasn't the play calling that was wrong.
No.
It wasn't the execution of the play that was wrong. It was a mental lapse by one player that cost the game, in my opinion.
Mhm.
The biggest snafu was taking the field goal at the end of the half instead of punching it in from the 2-yard line. I think if they'd have punched it in and did the dagger to the hearts and the morale of the 49ers and being up by 21 at halftime versus 17, it'd have been a different ball game in the second half.
Yep. I agree.
Because
I agree.
17 points has been overcome before. It's not a record, people. It
Hmm.
tied the record. So that means it's been done before. And that's fine. Thank God it wasn't a record, because if it was a record, then I would be screaming same old Lions might exist.
So, Jeremy, I know you watch a lot of college, and you're big on the draft. And any names that you think of for some of the positions that we should be watching for? You think are going to?
There's a really big safety that's coming out of Florida State. His name is James Williams. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. He runs a 4.4 to 4.5 40. He's being tried out at linebacker just because they've got really good safeties across the whole NCAA, and there's not enough room for all of them. And some of the linebackers wouldn't come and play because they declared for the draft and whatever. So they're going to try him out at linebacker. But in high school, he was a corner, and he graduated high school at 6'3" and 200 pounds. So he put on 2 inches and 20 more pounds, which, if you think about it, he's the type of guy you could do that Isaiah Simmons type of thing and make him play all over the field if you have the right coordinator to scheme it. As if you need a defense interior D lineman, and for a 4-3 or a 4-2-5 defense, Detroit Lions. Terrell Williams is coaching this kid out of Texas. His name is Tavondre Sweat. 6'4", 362 pounds. He's a mammoth and moves mountains. He literally was triple teamed in one of the practice events, and they couldn't stop him from getting to the quarterback. Hey, I'm glad to hear, Brian Snow, that you're feeling better from Snowman Multimedia. It's okay, brother. I'll have you on next week when we do our Super Bowl pick'em.
Awesome, awesome. So, what quarterback is going to go first in the draft?
I Just because I don't think Chicago's moving on from Fields, so I don't think they're going for a quarterback. So it's either going to be Caleb Williams or Drake May. That's the two names I'm hearing at the top. And third will probably be Jaden Daniels. Your fourth one, to me, is Penix because of his resume and how he's done as a starter for Washington. Um, and fourth or fifth, it's a crapshoot. There, you could throw out 10 names, and some people have been throwing out JJ McCarthy. And I watch a lot of Michigan football. I'm a Michigan slappy. I'm not going to lie, but I'm also a realist when it comes to what I see going into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be someone you'd rather take late day 2, early day 3, and let him sit 2 or 3 years just to see if he can get the grasp of reading an NFL defense. I think he needs a lot of work with his decision making. I'm just being as brutally honest as I can. I love JJ McCarthy and what he did with Michigan, but Bears are expected to trade the pick and get an experienced QB. But before they get a QB, they need to address the big problem the last few years, the O line. The O line is actually better than people think. They give Fields an average of 2.8 seconds, which is good for top 15 in the league in pass protection. Where they suck at is run protection. As you saw, without David Montgomery there breaking tackles behind the line, Khalil Herbert struggled mightily. Every now and then he'd break free because he's shifty enough, but they need a power runner. Roshan Johnson is that guy. Maybe they need to give him the rock ball more on first and second downs and keep Khalil Herbert as the change of pace back for third down and as the scat back. But I think they need to address the interior part of the O-line, which they could do all through that first round. I think they need another valid weapon opposite opposite DJ Moore because Mooney's a free agent. You guys could franchise tag him, but I think that's a mistake. His production dropped while and he had more drops this year than he's had in the past. And he looks
Mhm.
like he never really recovered from trading for a true number one receiver. I think you guys should go Marvin Harrison Jr. number one and maybe trade back at 9 and get more picks there. Because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is special.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And you can never have too many weapons. Maybe you can, but not some of the teams that need to improve. You can never have too many weapons. Um, Snowman, I appreciate that. Good to see me. Love to have you on the show. Let me know, and we'll work that out. Would love to be on the show. Uh, So next week is Super Bowl, and I don't know how many people are going to be watching this one, but
I have no dog in the fight, and
no dogs. No.
I'm gonna tell everybody the exact same thing that I've said for now 8 years. This will be the 8th year I haven't watched the Super Bowl. Super Bowl evening, I lost my oldest son. Until the Lions are in it, I'm not watching.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't think we're watching it either. We just don't. We don't have anybody in the race, and to be honest with you, these two teams really don't excite us. And
I mean, the
um,
only thing that I could find exciting is if Brock Purdy and the 49ers can beat the Chiefs, then you can start to make the analogy of Mr. Irrelevant being closer to Tom Brady than Pat Mahomes is.
that
Because
would be
Pat
interesting.
Mahomes is a different type of quarterback, whereas Brock Purdy is almost exactly like Tom Brady. Nobody knew he could run until he did it. Everybody said he
Hmm.
was a statue back there. That's why he got hurt versus Philly. And we saw last week he looked just as good as Vanilla Vic up there for the New York Giants, Daniel Jones at running the ball. So, yeah, and yes, that is literally his nickname. It's Vanilla Vic or Danny Dimes for Daniel Jones. Well, I have changed his nickname to Danny Pesos because I don't think he's worth a dime.
Speaking of Brock Purdy, I have to make light of Cam Newton talking about Brock Purdy and saying how Brock was the 10th best player on the 49ers.
I mean,
I
he's
love
kind of right, but I
what?
love the response. He's kind of right, but I love the response.
But and Brock Purdy said, "Well, there's 90 quarterbacks in the league, and you're not one of them, Cam." I love that. Like, okay, wait a minute. You want to talk about me? Let's talk about you. I'm at least playing in the league. I'm starting quarterback. Yeah, there might be other players on my team that are better than me, but at least I'm playing this game that you want to play and you're not playing.
I love it. The swagger by this kid and the moxie, you can't help but like the kid.
Right.
I don't I don't got anything negative to say about him.
Mr.
He's
Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant shouldn't be called Mr. Irrelevant anymore. It's Mr. Starting QB. He was statistically a top 10 quarterback. If you ranked him in quarterbacks and you have him outside the top 15, you're delusional or mentally challenged. Um, it's the same with Goff. You know what he is? Goff is a better version of Brock Purdy because he's older and more seasoned and makes better decisions. That's it. If it wasn't for 8 drops, do you realize what Goff's stat line would have been? And I'm not saying make those catches. I'm saying just remove the 8 drops. Remove those 8 passes from his stat line. um, he was 25 of 33, which means he actually tied his exact completion percentage that he had for the season in that game.
Braylon Dennis, man, Purdy overrated in your opinion.
Um, being from 2 teams that just watched him come back in the second half and torch a couple teams, I can't agree with that statement, Braylon Dennis. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying Goff is overrated either. Nowhere have I said that. He had top 5 statistics, but if you ask anybody that scouts the NFL on a regular basis, and I'm talking about professionals, not just us people doing
Hmm.
podcasts. I'm talking like the guys on ESPN and NFL Network. Goff and Purdy are ranked pretty close to the same. They're like either 11 and 12th or 12th and 13th, depending on whose list you look at. And
Right.
is it right? No, because statistically, Goff was 5th and Purdy was actually 4th in yardage. Goff was tied for 7th in touchdown. Purdy was ahead of him at 6th. Completion percentage, Goff is above Purdy. And that to me is what puts Goff above Purdy because that means his decision making is better.
I think, and being overrated, I don't agree with that. I think,
I think he's actually underrated because people dog him all the time.
exactly. And I think part of it is a lot of it has to do with the team that you're on and the players that you're surrounded with. Purdy's on a good team, but I don't think he's overrated.
Right.
But that's my opinion too. I disagree with you, Braylon. I appreciate and I respect your opinion, but I disagree with it. Um,
A lot of people are saying he's overrated, and it's mostly there's a lot of Lions fans that are salty from that game. And you know what? You got to take your fandom out of it and look at it and go look at his statistics. You really do.
yep.
I can say all sorts of bad things about Love too, but guess what? He statistically was a top 15 quarterback for his first year playing as a starter. But the difference is he had 3 years to sit. All you can say is they had Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo last year on the 49ers, and they weren't winning until Brock Purdy got there.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I yes.
Is it all Shanahan's system? Partially. Is Brock Purdy better than he was drafted? 1,000%. That's where I'm at with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ralph
Hello,
Williams.
Ralph.
I'm
Good to
telling
see
you
you.
right now, there's 28 teams in the league that would rather have Brock Purdy than the quarterback they have right now.
And how many of them had a chance to get him and decided to pass? And that's the crapshoot you take in the draft.
All of them. Think
You
about it.
know,
If he was dead last pick in the draft at 255th or 267th, whatever he was, every team in the league had a chance to draft Brock Purdy.
mm-hmm. And yet San Francisco's the only one that did. And the success they've had since then, which is awesome. Well, Jeremy, are we ready to talk a little women's college basketball?
Absolutely.
I haven't
'Cause
talked about it's sports related, and I I'm not a big, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a big basketball, especially women's basketball. I don't follow the WNBA. That for anybody that watches Three Chicks in a Pod or Chicks and Salsa, we all know that that's Megan Price's. That's her stick. That's what she does. That's what she does really great. But I have to give kudos because Caitlin Clark is doing something that we haven't seen in quite a while. She is averaging 32.4 points per game this season. For her career, she has 51 30-point games, the most by a Division 1 player in the last 25 seasons. 14 of those is this season. She has 15 triple doubles, including 4 this season. She has 11 40-point games, which is the most by any D1 player over the last 25 years. Right now, she has 3,462 points. She is number 2 all time. Number 1 was Kelsey Plum. She played for Washington from 2013 to 17 with 3,527 points. Caitlin Clark, will you become the all-time leading scorer? Do you think she's
Odds,
going to do it?
odds are 85% in her favor. I mean, how can you bet against those type of numbers?
I don't know how you I mean, I don't think we've seen a female as predominant as she is in years. I mean, obviously it's only been a couple years since the last one, but and the excitement that she's brought to women's basketball, the attendance that they're drawing too is something we haven't seen in, I don't know, ever. I think you were saying, Jeremy, were you saying that they have more at an Iowa women's basketball than some of
Oh,
the NWNBA?
you go back to the divisional round, or no, the wild card round of the playoffs. The NCAA women's basketball were more watched than Philly at Tampa Bay, and more watched than any WNBA game.
It's just crazy, but that's exciting to see because some of these less known sports or less watched in the previous years, it's great to see the popularity because let's face it, what else is on TV to watch?
TV has became like sports anyways. It's all reality TV anymore.
It is. It
And that's
is.
why I have subscription services. I just watch the shows I want to watch.
There you go. There you go. Well, Jeremy, what else is on your mind today?
I want to go back to a few years when a rookie quarterback had a great year and earned a second contract with the Lions. And it's a guy you guys don't want to hear this about, but we made him the highest player for all of 2 weeks until Kirk Cousins got his deal with the Minnesota Vikings. That was Jonathan Matthew Stafford. We go a few years into that contract and we redo his contract to make him the highest paid again. And again, within a couple of weeks, it was overshadowed. And everybody was complaining that we paid him this much money and we're going to the playoffs and losing, and couldn't understand why none of these players wanted to stay on the team and why we couldn't afford anybody. We overpaid for past accomplishments. When you overpay a quarterback, you hinder the growth of the rest of the team and who you can keep. And the core of your team starts to fall apart. And when it starts to degrade, everybody points the fingers at the coaches and not at the GM and the quarterback that's eating up more than 20% of the team's salary. Say what you want.
I could say I honestly feel that's the reason why in Green Bay we only had one with Aaron.
And one with Brett Favre.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. You guys finally got it to where your draft picks after that, because when you first got Brett Favre, it was easy once he got that Super Bowl, and it was easy to pay him mentally. He earned it.
Yep. Right.
But at the same time, you watched a lot of players start to leave, and you're like, man, why is this player leaving? Why is this player leaving? You can't afford them.
Nope.
And the same thing happened when Rodgers won his Super Bowl in his second year
Mm-hmm.
playing, which was after his franchise tag. What happened? He got that Super Bowl MVP contract. There's a
You
reason why a few Packer fans call him the same thing other fans do, and it's not a polite name, so I'm not going to say call it.
mm-hmm. That was the one thing you have to give Tom Brady credit for, is that he would go back in and say, let's renegotiate because I know I need players around me. I can't do this by myself.
Right. And that's where I'm going with it. If you go back to the year 2000 and you add up every salary of the Super Bowl playing, not just winning, Super Bowl playing quarterbacks, and add it all together, the only one that's above this number was the guy Detroit traded to the Rams, where they had to add players to win that year anyway. And I'm going to keep repeating this because everybody thinks, oh, just went there and won a Super Bowl. No, it's a team game.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage is 18.2% of all the QBs combined. The only one above it is Jonathan Matthew Stafford. That's pretty overwhelming, because if you take him out of the equation, it would have been 15.8%. That means every Super Bowl playing quarterback was either on a rookie contract or Tom Brady on a less than market value.
Yes.
Let me repeat that. Every Super Bowl playing quarterback was either a rookie contract or Tom Brady on a less than market value. And if with the way the inflated cap room is now, 18.2%, the number anybody should not want to pay a quarterback more than is 41.2 million starting this season. That's your food for thought.
Interesting. Interesting. That is really interesting. We have to say good afternoon to Will. Thank you for joining us here, Will.
Mark
Yeah.
Malley, Donkey Kong, Super Bowl or bust. I agree. 2025 is our year. We got to say it for next year again.
Well, I think Green Bay might have a little something to say about it, but we'll see.
I think it's going to come down to Detroit or Green Bay for the division, but I think both teams make the playoffs. I think both teams' floor is about 10 wins, and anything above that is gravy
I would agree. I would agree.
because
Do you
it's
think?
harder for both teams.
Oh, it does. Oh, yeah,
Because
and everybody's going to be gunning
Green,
for them.
Green Bay was the third best team in the division last year, so they had the easier side of the schedule
Right.
overall. Detroit was second, and they had an easier schedule than Minnesota. What we're going to see is if this is a 1 year wonder on if we can maintain that 10 plus win season for the first time in Detroit Lions history in the Super Bowl era. Can we have a back to back 10 plus win season?
Mm-hmm. And I'd go back to talking about a little bit about the quarterbacks and restructuring your contracts. We're seeing it even in other sports, somewhat. I know we talked about a little bit Thursday night about Corbin Burns because it was breaking news that he was being traded, and there are so many Brewer fans that are up in arms because how can we give away the farm this season and we're not going to have a good season? But you also have to remember that if players become free agents after a season, you you get nothing besides a draft pick. Nothing if they go someplace else.
Yep.
Whereas if you have trade value now, or they're willing to restructure and do their contracts, and it's a different story. But you don't want to be left with them walking out the door as a free agent. So
So
you gotta trade value now.
at 41.2 million, I want to say something because that's a key number also. Daniel Jones signed a 3 year, 40 million a year contract. So it's at least 1 million more than Daniel Jones. If anybody offers that contract to somebody, the agent can't come back with that awful saying you're going to hear. Oh, so you're saying my QB's no better than Daniel Jones?
Mm-hmm.
He's now the floor of contract value. But at the same time, that percentage, it has nothing to do with anything other than keeping your team together. That is the main reason why Tyreek Hill is a Miami Dolphin. It's
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes' contract that was due this season. They knew they couldn't afford him and an 18 to 20 million dollar a year wide receiver. And if you ask Tyreek Hill right now, would he like being making that money with Miami or playing in the Super Bowl this weekend and making 15 million? I bet you he'd say I'd rather make the 15 million.
I think players are going to have to start really taking a look at, and I get they're only playing for so many years, so they want to make as much as they can. But what's more important, making the bigger bucks or having more of a chance to go further and win a Super Bowl? Because everybody you talk to, Super Bowl or bust, that's what they want. I don't want a career of how many years. I'd rather win a Super Bowl. I want to win a Super Bowl. Well, in order to win a Super Bowl, you might have to take less money so that there's money to go around.
Dan Marino tried. He just had a horrible GM that didn't know how to sign or draft anybody. Dan Marino took less than the highest paid quarterback, even though he was the best quarterback in the league those years. He just didn't. He made O.J. McDuffie a household name.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as Dan Marino retired, what happened? O.J. McDuffie retired a year after. It's
Yep.
food for thought, people. People don't have that team mentality anymore. And that's the problem. It's a me first society. They're looking out for themselves. Yes, I understand it's a short window of years that you get to play in the NFL. The average NFL career for a running back is 3 to 5 years. For a quarterback, it's still 7 to 10. If
Mm-hmm.
you're making 20 mil a year and you can't make your money last, you're not living within your means, you're living beyond your means. It means you're
Yes.
doing stuff extracurricular wise that's costing you money.
That's
I'd
where
be
you have
happy with a million a
friends that
year.
you didn't have.
I'd be happy with a million a year, get taxed the crap out of me and take 100,000 and invest it and live comfortable off the interest the rest of my life. Because they have such a thing as a mutual money marketing account where you're guaranteed a 1 to 4% monthly yield. The first 5 years is a rookie contract only for first round picks.
Mm-hmm.
That is why it's 3 to 5 years for a running back, because not every running back is a first round pick.
Right. Right. Wow. We've had quite a good time on the show again, Jeremy. And where did the time go? I mean, wow. First 4 years
With the fifth year option, it's a 5 year contract.
for round one.
There's a lot of guys that don't even make it through their first year. Muhammad Ibrahim being one of them.
Any last parting shots, Jeremy?
I want to say what I say at the end of my show. Try
Okay.
every day to be a better person than you were the day before, because that's the only way to make the world a better place. It starts with it here. Much love to everybody in the chat. We appreciate that you watch. We appreciate that you talk and come in here and watch two talking heads talk sports, football, basketball, baseball. I just threw a couple of topics out that I saw as the top news stories of the day. You know what? Great. You know what? I love talking. And I love
Mm-hmm.
talking sports. And I
Yep.
really love talking football.
Oh, I could never have guessed that one. So so tell everybody how they can find you and watch your shows. Because remember, like I told everybody, it was an honor last week. I was on your 1000th show. I know some of the other girls from the chick show, they actually forgot and they were kicking themselves on Tuesday when I mentioned it. They're like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, "That's
Oh,
okay. I was on."
it's okay. It's
Yep.
okay. I wasn't mad. I know life happened. Stuff
Yes.
happened. And you know what? It is what it is.
That's what your shirt. That's what you were showing me a shirt earlier.
Yep. It
It
is
is
what
what
it
it
is.
is.
That's what the NFC Championship game is. I'm in acceptance mode. We lost. Let's get over it. Let's move
Yep.
on. Next season's around the corner. March 13th starts the whole free agent period where people can talk to agents and players and try to get them to their team. I believe it's March 7th is the team re-signing period and when they got to set the deadline for accepting fifth-year options. Thank God the only one we got to accept is Penei Sewell, and it's a no-brainer. Accept it. That way you don't have to worry about his extension to the following year.
So how can people watch you and get a hold of you?
Right here. I'm here at least 2 nights a week, sometimes more. It depends on what Scott needs. I'm here for him. But I love being on these shows with Candy and the company we have on Thursday. I love being on this show. It's the South Florida Tribune channel. Make sure you go over there. Make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your sports fans because, you know, he has some pretty great guests. You got guys like Coach Bonamago, former Lions special teams coach, and also former head coach of the Central Michigan Chippewas. You got Mel Farr Jr., son of Mel Farr superstar. For you Lions fans that don't understand that he actually has a son of the same name. I like the guy. I actually know him. We talk by text and by messenger. You know, how great is that? I get to talk with actual real life people that mean something in our lives. I talk with Mark Schmidt. I talk with Jeff Chadwick, former Lions. There's all sorts of connections you make throughout your lifetime. It's not what you know, it's who you know when you got trying to get it through this business. That
Agreed.
being said, you can also find me on my channel, Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions. I go live daily right now till the end of the season. Then once the off season starts, we're going to be doing every other day. It'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But right now it's Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. I have my other 2 shows a week, which is on Wednesdays and Fridays, which is the NFL Pick'em show where we do the roundtable talks and we talk about stories around the NFL on Wednesday. Lions Fan Cave Chat on Fridays, where I specifically have fans. And any fan that's been in my chat, all you got to do is email me if you want to be on. I don't have to have the same people on every week. They just come.
I hear you. I hear you.
And then, of
Well,
course, my ratings on the southfloridatribune.com under the Motor
e-
City Tribune heading.
exactly. Speaking of which, www.southfloridatribune.com, you can find Jeremy's writings. You can find Scott's, George Eichhorn. You can find transcripts from the Lions, Dolphins, Jags. You can find pictures that I've taken. Um, you can find all kinds of stuff. We get releases from some of the colleges, so like FAU, the Hurricanes, USF down here.
I promise I've seen no pictures from the locker room.
Yes. One of the things I want to promote up in the upper right corner, you can see a picture of the front cover of Scott's book. Scott's my husband. He's been in the business over 44 years, and he wrote a book about how the media has changed over the years. And he talks about some of his great interviews. There's a picture of him when he was much, much younger, but he interviewed Muhammad Ali, Tommy Lasorda, just a plethora of different people. You got to get the book, Amazon or Kindle. You got to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like baseball. Monday nights normally 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights Inside the Pigskin. We talk about strictly really anything football. Wednesday nights the flagship show Sports Exchange. We talk about any sport. And when I say any sport, they've talked from football to cornhole. Yes, I said cornhole. Any sport is all of them. They've talked about racing and IMSA and Daytona 500's coming up. I know. Let's see. Thursday nights we do Pundit, and then of course we do our show here, Fire Up, on Thursday nights with Smoking Jerry me, myself, Ralph Williams, and normally sometimes we have a guest. Sometimes George Eichhorn's on there. Sometimes you never know. We'll throw in a guest or two. And Sundays normally we've been doing
Fire Up. Madmouth guy.
Yeah, the Motor City Madmouth, right? Oh, and he's got his own show too, and that's a one-on-one interview show. But go to our YouTube channel, like us, see us. There's even videos. We were at the FAU men's basketball game last Sunday with North Texas, and we did the post-game interview. And Scott even got a couple of questions. Go over to the channel, watch it, listen for Scott, the Motor City Madmouth's voice. Can't miss it. But most importantly, like us, share us, and come back. And let us know if there are any topics you want us to cover. We'd love to have you on. But most importantly, just enjoy life. Enjoy the sports that we have today and next weekend if you are so inclined. But enjoy what we have going on, because there are a lot of different diversions that you can choose as an outlet to watch, and watch our shows, because we love to talk about sports and a lot of different things, right? We just like to talk.
Love to talk. Leave the politics out of it, though, please.
Yes. Typically, we don't do politics or religion on air. But thanks everybody for viewing today and commenting. We want to see you again next time. Until next time, have a great week. Thanks, everybody.